4 Media. We talk high school football, 4A, 3A, and 2 in Texas. We talk Texas sports. We talk NFL, guy talk, movie and booze. We also talk wrestling and so much more. So like and subscribe and check us out. And that means it's bug season. Heck, who am I kidding? It's always bug season in Texas. And that's why you need Grandeur Pest Solutions in your corner. They're locally owned and operated. They're trained, they're trustworthy, and they have a proven record as they have been in business for almost 10 years. They provide pest control against ants, bed bugs, bees, roaches, fleas, wasps, mosquitoes, rodents, spiders. If it crawls and you don't like it, they're probably going to take care of it for you. Now, they serve all of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they're locally owned. These two guys have been running this business since 2013, and every year they get bigger and bigger. But you know what they still do? They still have great customer service. In fact, if you get a hold of them, they're usually going to have your quote and your job ready to go within 48 hours. That's pretty good. Now, you can call them for a free estimate at 469-809-1769. You can find them online at Grandeur4, that's the number 4, shore.com. You can also find them on Facebook. Just type in Grandeur Pet Solutions, and we are so happy that they're title sponsor for Outdrank the Coverage in 2023.
It's time for the old time happy hour. So pick up your step and smile a while. Time to sing along.
Oh my God, we're getting bot spammed in our chat, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Happy Hour 10 here on Outdrank the Coverage. I guess at some point I just need to stop numbering the happy hours. I think we've realized we've made it. Anyway, outside of our spam-a-lots and the bots, they're awesome, man. I mean, honestly, if you ever are down and depressed in life, just find some bot spams on YouTube, because you'll get things like your creativity knows no bounds. You're a content genius. And I think this one's for you, intern Noe the Pro. You're a natural entertainer. By the way, intern Noe, how are you doing? What are you drinking? Hang on, we're not getting you. We're not getting a volume from intern Noe at the moment. Don't know why here. We're trying to figure this out on the fly. This is how things usually do work when we do this kind of stuff.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, holy crap. There you go. What'd you do? Mute yourself?
My mic was off.
Okay. Intern Noe, how are you doing? What are you drinking?
I'm doing well, buddy. Tonight I'm drinking a Colorado whiskey. It's from Breckenridge, called Breckenridge Dark Arts Whiskey Distilled from Malt Mash. It's 46% alcohol. I kind of like it. It has some apple and orange flavors to it. Pretty smooth, a little dangerous, pretty expensive. I actually got it in Breckenridge last year when I went for a week. And yeah, I'm going to have you. It's one of the many whiskeys I'm going to have to save for you whenever you come over.
I am not. I've never been a huge MASH fan, so I would like to try it anyway. Mainly, I'm not a MASH fan just because there's just a sourness about it, if that makes sense at times when the mash is coming. And to be fair, a lot of that was like, cheaper whiskey. So, but yeah, you know me, I'll try anything. I am, of course, as always, a little bit of good night loving vodka in my Southwest Conference cup. It is happy hour. Unfortunately, though, part of the show, well, I don't want to say it's sad. It is sad. Of course, if you did not know, Larry Allen, the Cowboy legend, passed away suddenly this last week at 52. And we're gonna celebrate his life for a lot of this and talk about some of the great football things that he did and just who he was as a person. Because I think the saddest thing about all this, as a fan, is there's a side to Larry Allen that a lot of people didn't know. And I think if he would have stayed around and been alive longer, he might have ended up on TV, because there are people that say of all the Cowboys from the 90s, for all the big personalities, that one of the funniest and just just a guy that you just wanted to talk to was Larry Allen, which is funny as hell when you see it from our side and just see what kind of a player he was.
Man, it seems like a tale of two halves. Him on the field and him off the field were completely different people. To your point, I've heard he was a teddy bear off the field, fun, loving guy, great to be around. Obviously, loved to lift. One of the strongest NFL players, or one of the strongest people ever. And he was very athletic, given his size. But yeah, he was a menace. He just flipped a switch whenever he went onto the field. But off the field, yeah, he seemed like a good family man, and it's very sad that someone that good is gone from us. But usually, all the good ones usually go early, unfortunately.
Why you and I are going to be around for so long. So when you think of Larry Allen,
Yeah.
and you cannot use the Saints play, and you cannot use the Colts drive. We'll talk about those here in a minute. But what game or what play or what indelible memory for you when he was a Cowboy do you have that when you think Larry Allen, that's the first thing you think of?
John Madden.
Just his love of him?
Just him, because John Madden. There were two players he talked about more than any. One was Larry Allen. One was Brett Favre.
And Reggie White. Reggie White was a close third.
Yeah, Reggie White was a close third. With Larry Allen, John Madden just loved offensive linemen. Points like he had Art Shell and was it Gene Upshaw?
Yes.
Back in the 70s with the Raiders. He just has a fascination and love for offensive linemen. Dominant ones like Larry Allen were near and dear to his heart. And it was just thinking of him, always focusing on what Larry Allen did, pushing some also 300-pound off defensive tackle, pushing him 5 yards down the field. Just hearing that's what I think about when I think about Larry Allen. How about you?
I think 1994 NFC Championship game against the San Francisco 49ers, actually just really all of 1994 for him because he was a rookie. And they knew pretty early on that they had something special. Like I can remember when he was drafted, there was a big buzz on because that was right when drafts really started to be on ESPN and like I was really getting into it. Like to that point, not just following, but like actually watching the drafts on Saturday. This is back when you people don't remember this, that, Saturday and Sunday was all just nothing but draft. It was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I can remember when they drafted him, people were like, yeah, this could be one of those uncovered gems, all that diamond in the roughs like Eric Williams was, except for, which this is where it's about to intersect. Eric Williams was the right tackle for the Cowboys on his way to a Hall of Fame career. I think you could still make the case that he should probably be in the Hall of Fame when you look at all of his accolades still hold up. But in 1994, Eric Williams partying at a strip club, then had a wreck that should have killed him by all accounts. And it, of course, ended that season. And guard rookie Larry Allen steps out at right tackle, and the Cowboys almost don't miss a beat.
Yeah.
That's when I knew, wow, this is special. And then when he moved into guard and just, we're going to have somebody on, and you said it best earlier. You and I always believe this. You want to know how great a player is? Listen to what his opponents say about him. That's why I think players need more input into the Hall of Fame. Now you have to balance that because sometimes players, to make themselves look good, they'll, you talk about everybody else you played as awesome. And then people go, well, dang man, if they're all awesome and you held up pretty good against them, you must be awesome too. But I don't think most really think in the moment like that. But what opponents say about a player usually tells you, and let's just go ahead and start there. Well, let's go here. This is Justin Tuck. And we'll talk about it after we come back on the other side of this.
That you played against one time, because you're a large dude, you're a strong dude. Give us a name of a guy you played against and you're like, man, I can't believe how strong this dude is.
It's only one person that I've ever went against that I was like, man, this guy is unbeatable. It's a guy named Larry Allen. And I got him when he was, quote unquote, old Larry Allen, but this guy was a brick wall. And he he knew it, and he let you know it. So it was kind of like, well, I'm trying to switch sides with people all game, try not to go that side.
Give us the story. How did he let you know it? Because I don't think of Larry Allen as a talker. I think of him as someone who dominates, but how did he let you know it?
Well, I've did my research on Larry, and more importantly than how he let me know it, young Larry Allen would go up to the line of scrimmage and go, whoop, whoop, and he would literally let the D tackle know that Emmitt Smith and Moose Johnson is going to be running through this hole right here, and there's nothing you can do about it. So just imagine you as an NFL D lineman knowing what a play is. You telling all your buddies, yeah, they're going to run right here. And Emmitt Smith, obviously, it's a reason why he has the most rushing yards in the history of the NFL, because he probably got 10, 15, maybe 20 yards on that play when you know the play was coming right there. How does that make you feel going back to the huddle?
All right. I love the woot woot because that has been verified multiple times. We were watching something recently before we recorded or after, and I can't remember who it was. I think it was Dana Stubblefield was talking about that. Was talking about just when Larry Allen was going well and he knew he had you dead to rights. Every time the play was going on his side, he would come to the line of scrimmage going, choo choo, here comes a motherfucking train, boys. And my favorite is, I can't remember who it was that said this, talking about that Larry Allen would have a big old a dip in his chaw. And if you ever saw his highlights, he dipped. But he would just be chewing it. And as they said, it was chew, spit, hit. Chew, spit, hit. I honestly believe this. And I'm not saying this because he's a Cowboy. And I'm not saying this because he's passed away. I legitimately think Larry Allen might be the greatest offensive lineman to ever play the game because he had everything. He was big. He was athletic. In fact, let's show you how athletic he was.
5 minutes left in the half, and it's knocked in the air and picked off by Darian Connor. And Connor is inside the 40, the 30, and tackled at the 16-yard line.
Larry Allen. I can't believe that. Give me a break. The rookie from Sonoma State. This guy weighs 325 pounds.
Wayne Martin batted it. We think Darian Connor with the pick, and Allen saves the touchdown.
I can't get over that. He runs down a very speedy linebacker. A little bit of an angle, but this is a huge man. This guy's got a rocket booster strapped to his back. All right, there's the bat by Martin. Right into Allen is still standing there. There he is to the left of your screen.
He didn't even get a running start at it.
Look at this, folks. 6'3", 325 pounds.
Now, you were talking about a linebacker in Darian Connor who was pretty fast. Like, he was part of that Miami-style linebacker that, played with their hands more so they didn't get engaged in the block. Ken Norton Jr. was amazing at it and using their speed. And the thing that always shocks me about that highlight is Larry Allen standing still. This isn't a situation where he had the angle at any point. And also, he was a great technician. I think people forget about that. I think a lot of people think John Hanna, deservedly so, is one of the best guards in the history of the NFL. And he was a technician. Larry Allen was that. And, also he could lift a house. I mean, what Larry Allen did to football players, you felt bad for all pro players. I can remember Warren Sapp and Larry Allen having a couple battles, and Larry Allen just driving Warren Sapp into the ground repeatedly. I just don't think there was anybody better at the position.
I was hoping you didn't play the Saints video only because Michael Irvin may or may not have been phoning it in, trying to chase Darian Connor on that play.
Oh, that's allowed. That's allowed. He only gets that energy after the cocaine breaks, buddy.
Yeah, he was something else. There is an argument to be made that he was the greatest offensive lineman of all time. Going back to what we talked about just through messaging, it's really hard to quantify offensive linemen and their greatness. Now it's a little bit better. They have more stats on it, like pancakes, sacks allowed, and all that. But it's still word of mouth. You need to hear defensive players describe how good that offensive lineman was in order to really understand and appreciate how good that player really is to most people.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
But yeah, that Larry Allen. I mean, I would have to think on it. I would probably put him in the top 3 of all time. John Hanna, of course, is one, like you said, one of the greatest guards. He played for the Patriots, I think, for his entire career. Anthony Munoz, still considered the best left tackle of all time. Best center of all time, that's always debatable. I think Dwight Stevenson for the Dolphins in the 80s is up there.
Mike Babb is up there, former University of Texas, played with Cleveland forever. I think if Travis Frederick would have stayed healthy, and been able to play, I think Travis Frederick could easily be known as the, and that's one thing you could say about Dallas. When you think of organizations, I know NFL Throwback, which, by the way, it's a really fun YouTube channel. If you're not a subscriber of it, folks, check them out. They're really fun. They show a lot of stuff. And like one year they did best running backs, like for a franchise. And if they ever do one for best offensive line, like what franchise has the best consistent offensive line, Dallas has to be in the top 2 or 3.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. When you look at a best offensive line, people are going to typically think about all the great teams like the 60s Packers, 70s Steelers, and Cowboys, 80s Niners, 90s Cowboys, Patriots. And they'll start there. But yeah, I really think this generation of Cowboys has one of the most consistently good offensive lines. And then in history, to your question, Rayfield Wright, Nealon, Rafferty,
John Nyland, yeah. And then, Mark Tuinei, Nate Newton, all them. Flozell Adams, you and I talk about, if Dallas gets one Super Bowl during Flozell Adams' time, I think he's a Hall of Famer.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm trying to think. Some teams are just known for doing something well, like Virginia Tech back in the day. They were always good at special teams.
Oh, you saying my thing about that, right? You're not baiting me right here, are you?
No, I'm just saying consistently they'll get the block punt or whatever, and they'll get praise on ESPN for.
That's what frustrated me. So they would show it because Beamer. First off, and this is why we're so happy, by the way, to finally have one of these happy hours where we can just random. But first off, what Beamer did so smart at Virginia Tech is when ESPN said, "Hey, we're going to do these Thursday," he's like, "I'm in. Give them all to me." But I used to get so frustrated by Beamer ball talk because here's what would happen. They would say, "Oh, Beamer ball's all about special teams. Look, they're second in block punts. They're second in kickoff return yardage. They're second," and all of them would be second to Texas because Texas legitimately, that's one thing about under Mac Brown. They had amazing special teams. And so back then I'd get all frustrated. Now, as a broadcaster, I realize, well, yeah, you pump that up with Virginia Tech because they weren't supposed to have all that. That's what made it so unique. Man, I miss Virginia Tech back then. That was a fun program.
Yeah, I like them. I like their uniforms back in the day. This was before Michael Vick went there in 98, 99.
Beamer ball really got rolling about 92, 93 is when it started to really kick up, and they gave Florida State a couple of hard games back then, and that's kind of what got people noticed. And again, I think it was 96 when ESPN started Thursday Night College Football, and he literally was like, "We will play any of them you want us to." That's what you do when you're a school like that. That's how you recruit.
Without looking it up, I mean, when I first started liking Virginia Tech, yeah, I mean, it was like all those special teams plays they were making, but there was a quarterback they had back in the early to mid 90s. I think his name was Maurice DeShazo, something along those lines. Like I gravitated toward him, and then that kind of got me to where I was really liking Virginia Tech. But yeah, so bring it back. There's some teams that are just known for doing something really well throughout their whole Steelers running the ball.
That's a good point, man.
Yeah, Marty Ball.
Ball.
If you're going to extend it to head coaching, Marty Schottenheimer. He was just great at he could get a team to the playoffs doing it his way. You just needed to really take the reins from him in the playoffs, and then there might have been a better shot.
Hang on, here we go. We're in happy hour mode, so we're going to stretch out. Why, in your opinion, did Marty Schottenheimer's playoff success not happen? Like, what was it? And, of course, with two of them, it's a lot more about I guess the Ernest Biner fumble is on them, but the drive is really, you tip your hat to John Elway. But I mean, I'm even going into, the Chiefs, the Chargers. What was it about him that he couldn't have that playoff success?
Two examples to his credit. The Biner fumble, that's not on him.
No, not at all. And I don't really blame him for the drive. That's just beautiful.
In the 93 AFC title game against the Bills, when he was the head coach, that was Montana's first year with the Chiefs. Montana got hurt early. I think they were actually competing and playing really well until he got hurt, and then that was it. What I would say is a good example. So my reasoning is he overthinks. It's just he thinks like kind of what McVay did in the Super Bowl against the Patriots 6 years ago.
Yeah.
5 years ago. Just overthought. The biggest case in point to that is the 06 Chargers. 14-2, best record in football, MVP running back LaDainian Tomlinson breaks the TD record for a season. They host the Patriots, who are good, but not back to where they were before. I know the next year they go undefeated, but they didn't have Moss. They were very beatable. Chargers were up 10 points on this team. And then bad decision after bad decision by Schottenheimer, and they lost that game.
I always thought he maybe was a little too conservative. I think he, I think if you look at almost every, I'm trying to make sure, but no, I'm going to stick with that. If you look at almost every good playoff coach that has won a lot of playoff games, they know when to be aggressive and when not to be. They know when to put and it's not something you can teach either. I just think that's something you play by hunch. And let's be fair, even those make mistakes. You and I talk about this all the time when we're watching the 92 championship game highlights. The Alvin Harper catch and all that happened because Jimmy Johnson got too aggressive, went for it on fourth down, when if he'd have kicked the field goal, it would have made it a 13-point game. I get his idea of, hey, that's still 2 scores and the Niners are ahead. But I think if you kick that field goal, that just is another kick to the Niners. Like, now we have to, and so even when they're good at it, sometimes they make mistakes, is my point. But with Marty, he has that, what I call the Jason Garrett disease, where he always clap, but as long as his team is more talented, he won because his talent won. But he didn't know how to game plan. He didn't know how to get things when he was the underdog. And if you look at Jason Garrett's career, that's why they were 8-8 so much. They beat the teams they should, and they usually lost to the teams they should. Problem is, they would usually lose one game they shouldn't each year, and that's what usually kept them out of the playoffs. Again, this is why I love this. All talking about Larry Allen. I'll wrap it back to Larry Allen. I do think the one mistake Bill Parcells made was getting rid of Larry Allen. I think he easily had a few more years left in him. I mean, he played for the Niners, for 2 more years, and I think he made an All-Pro in one of those.
He was definitely a Pro Bowler at that first year with the Niners in 06. That was, I think, Frank Gore's rookie year, or I think it was his rookie year, and then Alex Smith was in his second year. It was kind of a somewhat decent year for the Niners. They went 7-9. It
was a surprise year for them. They kind of were a year ahead at the time, and I get what Parcells was thinking. You want to kind of got to wash out all the Jimmy Johnsons. You don't want any of back in our day when we were winning Super Bowls, but I really do think that that's one of those you should have really sat down with him and talked to him, and because Larry Allen still had something to provide. And it doesn't bother me that he was a Niner. I don't care about all that kind of crap. He's a Cowboy. But I do think that was one of especially when you look at how bad Bill Parcells was when developing offensive lineman in Dallas. That's the other thing nobody talks about with Parcells. He did a lot of things right with Dallas, but his drafting was actually pretty horrible. Just look at who they took at running back. And if you tell me DeMarcus Ware, this is when I get to tell you, hey, guess what? That was Jerry Jones. Bill Parcells admitted he wanted Marcus Spears first, and then if DeMarcus Ware was there in the late of the first round, that's fine. And that's the one time Jerry Jones stepped in front of Bill Parcells and said, no, we're doing it the other way. And it worked out, even though Marcus Spears wasn't a first-round pick. But anyway, I do think that was the one mistake. And I don't know. It feels weird because Larry Allen only had one Super Bowl. He's only there for that one. And so his career just feels kind of odd because it feels like he had more Super Bowls.
He definitely did. His prime years were after that Super Bowl season.
Kind of wasted, if you want to be honest.
Yeah, it was wasted. We've talked about this in last year's look back when we went over the Super Bowls. We talked about it in other happy hours and just randomly inserted other shows. The Cowboys just didn't know how to adjust during the salary cap era. They assembled a perfect team that could have been a dynasty for 15 years in 92. But they just, as soon as they had a good year, just even like special teams players like Kenneth Gant, the Shark, all these talented guys have started leaving. And there we go. By 97, they were stripped to just the triplets. And then around that time, you saw Larry Allen start to develop, but you can't run to his side every single play. You're just going to tire him out. He is still human, even though he looks superhuman to all of us.
All right. So is it time now to show the what you talked about, the Colts? Here is what some people say, and it's so funny because this game is forgotten now. But this game was the end of an era and the beginning of a new era. And the game played out almost exactly like that as the old guard jumped out with power and were dominating, but ran out of gas. And the new Colts with Manning in them take a 17-3 deficit and end up winning, by a touchdown. And so this game kind of gets forgotten. It was such a transitional game. And then in all of that, we had everybody calls it the drive. It really is only like 4 plays. I mean, that's still pretty impressive. But here is what many people consider maybe the most perfect offensive line play ever recorded in one drive.
They're stunting. They're blitzing. They're doing everything they can to try and foul up those run schemes.
LaFleur in motion. Here's Emmett Smith again. Emmett.
Did you see Larry Allen?
Yep.
Ellis Johnson is a good tackle.
Yes,
he's number
he is.
62.
Very
I don't mean to get carried away with a man in his block, but I want to show you a block. Now watch what this guy here does to this guy here. Now, if you want to be a blocker, you want to be a guard, you do this. That is called a pancake. I mean, that is manhandling. That is putting the guy right on his body. Be that guy right there, old number 73, White.
Here's Emmett again, and Emmett gets the first down. Emmett's had a busy day.
You say, just get low. Now watch Ellis Johnson. He gets so low there, he just took his head and just stuck it right in the ground. He said, I am not going to let Larry Allen get underneath my shoulder pad.
Who moves over to the right end, and here's Emmett Smith again. And Emmett flashes into the secondary and down to about the 5-yard line.
And right in behind Larry Allen again over Ellis Johnson. There's nothing Ellis Johnson can do about it. And I know it's not a one-man gang, but he's trying to do everything he can, and he's just getting manhandled there. He's getting whipsawed. I mean, he's getting blocked and turned, and like anything that would be, where you needed a guy to go with you, I think I'd take him.
Well, if Baselli is better, he should be outlawed.
I mean, I hate to make this a Larry Allen highlight film. He just took Cornelius Bennett. That time they ran to the right, but they still ran behind Larry Allen by having him pull, and he pulled and knocked Cornelius Bennett down, and I could feel it all the way and hear it all the way up here.
Chris Warren got the touchdown.
Yeah, I'm not kidding you. I mean, watch, he's going to pull and make contact right here. Watch it. Here's where he's going to end up. Now watch that. Boom! Look at that. I mean, he knocked him right out of the picture. You kidding me?
Warren gets the touchdown.
And I mean, again, Perfect. And like they said, Robert Ellis was not a bad football player. Now, the Colts were always undersized on the defensive line, but still.
Bro.
What?
Okay, out of those 4 plays, second play was a good play by Ellis Johnson. Like he
Ellis Johnson.
did it. Oh, what did you say?
I meant Ellis Johnson. I said Robert Ellis.
Oh, okay. Anyway, going down like that, getting your pads below the opponent's pads, that's leverage. That's a smart thing to do in most cases. Now, to that, he actually won that one.
Well,
believe it or not, Ellis Johnson won that second play. Believe it or not. Now that fourth play,
that's Cornelius Bennett.
Now Cornelius Bennett, one of the best linebackers in the 90s, very respected, very good player. I would have loved him as a Cowboy. He saw Larry Allen coming, and it's almost like he just froze. He didn't move. He is faster than Larry Allen. He didn't move. He was just scared still, and just got clocked. And he's a big dude.
Yeah, it reminded me, and I meant to pull this and I forgot. It reminded me of the Greg Lloyd in the Super Bowl on that first drive when Larry Allen did the same thing, kicked him out. And that that's the one negative of a 3-4 speed rush linebacker. Even a big guy like Greg Lloyd, they can't take on blockers. And Allen kicks him out by 5 or 6 yards. And that's what we're talking about. Allen didn't just beat you; he humiliated players. Like, I mean, he did things like just. It's like
good players, really all pros,
Hall of Famers. It's like Allen Iverson with the crossover, embarrassing a Kobe Bryant or somebody like that.
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan a couple times. You're right. And that's what Larry Allen did consistently. Like I'm trying to think in my head, and I'm not going to pretend that I remember every Cowboy game, but I don't ever really remember anybody being like, oh man, Larry had a tough game today. Like, I don't ever remember that.
No, never happened. He always, now we'll say as he got older, of course, he couldn't do it for 60 minutes. You couldn't just run it toward him every single play, like I said earlier. But I mean, he didn't need to have his pads beneath his opponent's pads. He was just strong enough, upper body wise alone, to just bench press all pros 5 yards downfield. That is something you don't really game plan for. Most of these linemen, I mean, they're all world athletes. These are some ridiculously talented players. And it's just something you can practice all week.
Yeah.
And you'll never be able to defend Allen. It's just, he was so good at that. And it really is sad he only has one ring. I mean, like, he made John Randall look bad, Morton Sabb look bad. They were pressure. He put pressure on the defensive linemen to have to play proper technique, be faster, get your pads under him.
And then still get your ass kicked for 3/4 of the plays.
Heaven forbid you accidentally go back to your peewee roots and stand up right when the ball is snapped. He's just going to kill you. It was just an unbelievable player, a great guy off the field from everything I've heard. I've had a couple of friends that ran into him at the Walmart or Target around the DFW Metroplex. They all say he's just a humble giant, gentle giant, just a chill guy. It's just very sad. He was with his family in Mexico when he died. Still don't know what the cause was.
I don't know if we ever will find out.
Probably not.
Probably something to do with a heart or an aneurysm or something like that. And again, that's the thing. Didn't even know anything about his life, but like his daughter talked about, and people talked about just how much of a family man he was. And let's be fair, inside that group of the Cowboys, it would have been real easy for him to be ostracized and made fun of. Of course, who the hell's going to make fun of Larry Allen? But that's my point. there's a certain group of that Cowboys that, we love the Cowboys of the 90s. We embrace what they were, but they would bully other players. You listen to like Clayton Holmes talk about like he basically was an altar boy till he got to Dallas and just felt and there were stories about like Haley and them, not Haley because Haley wasn't really part, but like Irvin and them trying to get Allen to go out and party, and Allen's just like, no, it's just not my thing. I don't want to do that. And it does kind of suck that he was on the last part of that. I'm glad he got that ring, but it sucks because, man, it just goes back to as great as that rival dynasty was and as great as those three, really four teams were. And you can add 91 and I think you can add 96 to an extent. And 98 was very underrated. And again, 97, if things don't go off the rails, maybe things are different. But man, it just feels like Larry Allen just had to kind of shoulder a lot of crap there for a while, especially when you've got at one point Florida State great Clay Shiver as your center.
Man, yeah, I remember Clay Shiver. He didn't last
bad. He wasn't that bad.
He didn't last too long with the Cowboys, though. I don't remember, from what I recall.
No, I mean, again, it was just it was a revolving door. Hell, Stepnoski ended up coming back right at the end, and
I don't think there was much consistency until Andre Gerard in the 2000s.
And then he went snap stupid there at the end. That was so weird. Nobody talks about him getting the yips. That's what he got. And we're going to eventually do a show on the yips because one of my favorite players, well, two of my favorite players ever in baseball both developed the yips, and that's Steve Sachs with the Dodgers. And then I think the one everybody remembers the most is Mackie Sasser. He was a catcher for the Mets, and it got so bad he couldn't even throw the ball back to the pitcher. And that's
I thought you were going to say Rick Ankiel.
No, I don't call what he had the yips. He didn't have great control before. And so I just think he just lost control. He just never had that. He had a live arm, but he didn't have great control. Chuck Knobloch got the yips. He famously got the yips.
I mean, it was magnified with the fact that he went to the Yankees.
It probably cost him a Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he was kind of on his way with the Twins. This is all in the 90s. I think I remember correctly.
Yeah, he was a rookie of the year in 91 when they won their World Series. He was having a great career. He goes to the Yankees, and he just all of a sudden can't throw to first base. Now, he still contributed, but like legitimately, I think he was on his way to a Hall of Fame second base career. But anyway, we're going to eventually do a show on the yips because that stuff's kind of fun. But that's Larry Allen. Let's
rest in peace.
Pour one out in our gullets.
Yeah, on this show, we don't pour one out for our homies. It'd just be wasting liquor. So we outdrink the coverage don't believe in such things.
We're about the environment.
Yes.
Speaking of Larry Allen, we do want to talk while we have 6,400 viewers right now. We want to talk about Friday. Yeah, Friday. Intern Noe and I are getting together for our monthly recordings. It'll be a look back. We are now at the number 2 rival, and I will just go ahead and give you a little bit of a guess on who the number 2 rival is for the Dallas Cowboys. And that is, hang on. There we go. That's a beautiful table right there, sir.
Man, I love that yellow helmet, man. It looks good.
I will say this. We are not in any way endorsing or not endorsing the Redskin name, the Redskin logo. This is simply a historical video about these two franchises. So just want to put that on record. Intern Noe and I are perfectly fine with them being the Washington Commanders. But no, there is no but. No, there really is. I will ask you, this is a little bit of a preview.
Okay.
Do you think the name of the two teams helped the rivalry?
Yes, because American tradition, American folklore, American, like how you're raised as a kid in America from a certain time period, maybe post World War II up until the 80s and 90s. Cowboys versus the Indians.
Yep.
Perceived as good guys versus bad guys.
Yeah.
Tale as old as time.
Yeah.
as a kid, some kids would have a feather, around their head, and they would be the Indian, and one other kid would have the cowboy hat. They'd be the cowboy, and the cowboy would be, yeah. Looking back at it now, I can see how completely offensive it really is.
Oh yeah.
But it was just part of the time period. I mean, it made sense that you would have.
So I do want to say this. I am not, again, I am perfectly fine with the name change. I realized pretty young in life, but I will say it does need to be said that they were legitimately at first named in honor of, because the head coach was a Native American. A lot of the players were Native Americans. It's that whole thing of, though, context doesn't age. So, I even understand why some people said, one of the possible mascots was going to be the Red Tails, which is the African American World War II flying group that did a lot of great things. And somebody said, yeah, but isn't that exactly the same thing that maybe 20 years from now that doesn't seem like you're paying homage? Well, I mean, no, I'm saying because the same thing happened with the Redskin, because when it was named, it was in honor of. Yeah, I understand that point. That's my point. I understand.
It wasn't an offensive term when it was first coined.
Well, and it was in honor of the Native American head coach and Native American players. It evolved to something different. That's what I meant by Red Tails. I could see it evolving into something different. I will say this: if they would have just done that, keep the yellow helmet, or even go with the red helmet and just use the R, and nobody cares. I still think it wasn't right for Daniel Snyder to do it. I don't necessarily have a problem with the Commandos. I think I legitimately.
You said Commandos.
Sorry, I legitimately think that their uniforms now are very underrated. Yeah. We were just talking about that, like this helmet. I think this helmet. I got to back out when I do that so I can see what I'm doing. I legitimately think that this helmet, the new helmet, is a cool look. I like the W, but I would not have a problem if they ended up renaming them. Like, you could have gone Washington Warriors and been basically the same thing. I could see them changing the name. I don't know. It's funny. I just wanted to disclaim it, and now we have a big talk about it, which a lot of it we're going to repeat when we're doing it. But
so one, Warriors is fine. It's similar to the Kansas City Chiefs, and they still have their team name. So, and two, when y'all watch our show on Washington, the number 2 rival, there's a good argument that they should be the number 1 rival, and we'll talk about that on the show.
Yeah.
There's argument for it being number 1 because of how it started, and there's an argument for being number 2 based off of what time period you became a Cowboy fan, or what time period you became an NFL fan. So,
and you can honestly, and I think anybody that's watched the whole series, and for those that haven't, by the way, we have almost 8,000 people here. We appreciate y'all.
Oh, nice.
Our rivals so far, not counting the two honorable mentions, but our top 5 rivals have been number 5.
The New York Giants.
I was waiting for.
I didn't know you were asking me to say it.
Number 4, the Green Bay Packers. Number 3,
the San Francisco 49ers.
And then number 2's the Washington Commanders. So we never was surprising people. Number 1's the Eagles.
Yeah.
You can make the case that 1 and 2 could easily be flipped if the last 40 years were flipped. Now, I will say this. One of the reasons why I think Washington, and some of this we're going to repeat on Friday anyway, but that's what we do. I think Washington should be number 1, partly because I think at one time Dallas versus Washington was by far the biggest rivalry in football, and maybe even all of sports. From 1976 to 1986, yeah, the Giants popped up. Yeah, the Eagles popped up. But And I have a unique perspective, and we've talked about it many times, but we will talk about it for sure Friday.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, in my family, me and my dad are Dallas Cowboy fans, and my mom was a Washington, and still Washington, but not as much as she used to be, a Washington Redskin fan, now Commanders. And so I got to see both sides of it. I mean, the Eagles and Cowboys have been great the last. I'd say I think the Deuce Staley, the pickle game, I think that kicked off the newest round of Cowboys Eagles. But honestly, outside of a playoff game and outside of a couple games, the Eagles and Cowboys don't really decide much other than who wins the East and who takes the wild card. Washington and Dallas for 10 years decided the NFC almost at times. But anyway, so that's going to be Friday. And then we're also going to talk about what I think is my favorite football movie. Any given Sunday, we're back to bad movies and a drink. We do apologize for the delay on that. Again, that first episode being put, behind the issues we were having with that. Speaking of, hang on, I know I'm off air a little bit.
Thank you, Patreon.
That's exactly where I was going. Thank you so much for saying that. Wait, why is it not showing? There we go. We have a Patreon now. Go to patreon.com/outdrank the coverage. And all shows that we do, like the look backs and stuff, if they get hit with, wait a minute. I just realized I don't think I've posted the San Francisco one to YouTube yet. I can't remember. I think it's on. No, it's fine. Because I wanted to go. Anyway, that's great. That's more content. Don't do like that, you little dork butt. But anyway, you can check out our Patreon, Outdrank the Coverage. Everything is free for the summer, but we will eventually start in September going to paying. But that's because we're going to have special shows that you will only watch if you are a $5 member of Patreon, and it helps us keep shows like this going and all that kind of fun stuff. But all right, so we talked Larry Allen. We talked about what we're doing Friday. Where do you want to go next?
Let's just keep it in-house in the DFW area, and then we can branch out to the nation. Dallas Stars, they got eliminated by the Edmonton Oilers in 6 games. That was kind of like a tale of 3 games. The first 3 games, Dallas played great. The last 3 games, they did not.
Did I not call it?
You called it.
When they're up game 3, 2-1. Had a chance to make it to take it. I'm sorry, game 4 had a chance to take it to 3 wins and 1 loss. They gave up other leads, but when they gave up that one, you were letting a good team in again. And I want to say this: this is nothing about what Dallas necessarily did wrong. Give the Oilers credit. The Oilers just outplayed them, and I was scared of this game. I really was hoping Vancouver would beat Edmonton. It just felt like Edmonton's finally, matured. It's weird to think, but that first month of the season probably was the best thing that happened to them, because I think it forced them to finally alter some things that they were doing that they could get away with in the regular season, but you can't in the playoffs. So I want to tip the hat to them. But for Dallas, year 2, you've made it to the Western Conference Finals. I like that they're a power team now, but they've got to figure out how to get to the next round.
Yeah. So my thought on the Stars is they've consistently been pretty good the last 5 years. Consistency has been lacking amongst the other Western Conference teams. So kudos to the Stars for making it this far. To me, what was their ultimate downfall was their power play. The first 3 games, they were great. They were shutting down the Oilers, who have an excellent power play team, or our power play, but they can score goals. They can do penalty kills. But what ended up being the killer was after game 3. Dallas was 0 for 14 on the power play in this series. That's what ultimately killed them. What Edmonton did in game 3, where they basically cratered after going up 2-0, and then Jason Robertson had a hat trick and they won. They could have just folded and been done with the series. But what happened was in game 4, Dallas was up 2-0. Edmonton decided to play more defense. And that, I don't know what happened after Dallas was up 2-0 in game 4, but whatever it did, they just did. They had the yips because Edmonton outscored them 10-2 after that.
I just don't think Dallas could answer anymore. I think Dallas just they ground through the playoffs. You can make the case that Edmonton was the second best team they saw, maybe even the third best team. This is unfortunately what happens when you're in a division or a conference that's really, really deep, and then you have this weird way that hockey does playoffs. Dallas should not have been playing should not have been playing Vegas in the first round. Dallas shouldn't have been playing Colorado in the second round. But the way they seed it and everything, it's really weird. And so you get what you get. Where Edmonton, I don't want to say they had an easier. No, actually I do. They had an easier path. And they had legs after game 4. Dallas lost their legs. And part of that's because Dallas is older. Even though Dallas has a lot of young players, you still got, look, Joe Pavelski, I hate that they didn't win it for him. But to be honest with you, if they'd have won a cup this year, I don't know if he would have just felt like a hanger on her because he vanished in the playoffs. And so that was really, really telling. And that's the kind of stuff. Dallas is almost there. They need a little bit more dynamicness, I think, in their first couple lines. But I'm still happy. I'm still very happy with where they are. You know me. I just want a team that's consistent, that consistently can be in the playoffs and make noise. And that's what they're doing right now. And so I'm enjoying it. This might be the best stretch that when we look back that they ever had, even over the 97 to 2002 stretch. It's kind of getting, those have the 2 final Stanley Finals. But if Dallas can get one more appearance in a cup in the next couple of years, then you're looking at the best stretch the Stars have had in Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, I could agree with that. The late 90s, early 2000s were probably the greatest stretch for the Stars, like you said.
God, they were boring back then.
They were boring. That was the Ken Hitchcock way. That's just and it worked. And they had players that bought into it, especially Mike Modano, the team star that could have been scoring 50-plus goals every year, but he sacrificed and decided to score 30-plus goals every year.
And that's what Jason Robertson did this year. Jason Robertson went from being a top 4 scorer in goals to still almost getting a point a game. I think he finished with 80 points in 82 games.
Yeah.
But he became so good on the back check, so good on the defensive end. And this feels like about, if you're a Stars fan, this feels about like 98 for Dallas for me.
On the cusp. Yeah, they just need that one player to get them over the hump. Yeah.
Brett Hull type.
So what I think the Stars need to do in the offseason is address their power play because that was their ultimate downfall.
Now you can look at and this is the weird thing about hockey. All sports have fluke stats, but hockey is one of those yo-yos where, like, 3 years ago Dallas was terrible. The year Dallas missed the playoffs after the Stanley Cup, they missed it because they were terrible in overtime.
Yeah.
Then the next year they were top 5 in overtime. And then last year they were terrible in overtime again. Same thing with power play. So it's one of those, it's like, well, they're going to have to tinker because they're going to lose Joe Pavelski. Now, Matt Duchene says he wants to stay in Dallas and he'll take a hometown discount. If that happens, awesome, because he showed he can still play. But with the power play, you don't want to mess it up too much because this could have just been a fluke year. It's one of those weird things with hockey.
Oh, well, if whatever they do, if they can't address the power play, and it could just be a yo-yo type situation, the one thing they really do need to do is get more depth on defense. Because right now, Heiskanen is playing a lot like Duncan Keith did back in the day, like Lidstrom did back in the day.
Well, and Tanev got hurt. And you want to talk about what might have been the difference, is that right there. Tanev is one of the few players that could keep up with Connor McDavid. Every superstar has that one foil. And that's kind of what Tanev is, and that's literally why Dallas traded for him. And I really hope they re-sign him. And you can see, just go look at the playoffs or the finals or the Western Conference Finals and see when McDavid started getting points. It's when Tanev was hurt. But you're exactly right. You've got Miro and you've got Tanev. But I mean, Tanev is not all around great. You've got Hartley, who he logged a ton of minutes. They're definitely going to have to get some defensive depth. I think they've got great forward depth, even losing Pavs. if they lose Pavs. I think there's a very good chance Joe Pavelski could do one of those where he's retired till April, and then if Dallas is the number 1 seed and they're rolling, he might join them for a playoff run. But they still need to figure out what they're going to do for the rest of the season with that.
Yeah, I mean, outside of Heiskanen and Miro and Lindell, they just add some more depth, just 2 more defensemen. Just give them a break. Ottinger will benefit greatly from it. I really think they have everything else they need to be a championship. They're going to be one of the top 5 teams next season. They're a team that's built for the next 3 to 4 years. I don't think their window is closing.
I don't either.
I just think they need to keep fine tuning the roster, and they're on the cusp.
In fact, I mean, if they do it right, their period is just opening, because once Seguin and Ben's salaries get off the books, let's remember the last 3 years, the Stars have been cap strapped. And they kind of got lucky that both Robertson and Ottinger kind of gave them 7-year discounts. I mean, they're still getting paid a lot, but both of them could have asked for more. And by the way, Tyler Seguin and Ben both had bounce back years. They were very productive, but still, I think it's $15 million combined between them yearly. When those come off the books and Neil can start playing a little bit more with the higher upper ends, Dallas should be around for the next 5 to 10 years. And we don't know. Things will happen, of course, but I'm just saying, on paper, they have, I think somebody said, I think it was Barry Melrose, not Barry Melrose, somebody I was listening to on the Bill Simmons show talking about Dallas feels like they're in like one of those Detroit Red Wings where like they're going to make the playoffs 9 of the next 10 years and at least go to the Western Conference Finals 4 or 5 of those years. And I agree with them.
Yeah, they have a lot of young talent with Robertson and Hintz and Ottinger. They will be around for a while. They're going to give Colorado problems. They're going to give the Golden Knights a lot of problems. The Jets had a pretty good year this season. They kind of flopped in the playoffs, but just the way the playoffs are structured, they played a very competitive Colorado Avalanche team in the first round, so that kind of sucked on their part.
Well, that's the West right now, dude. And that's a good point. Like, Dallas could be great and still be getting beat a couple times in the first round or second round because Colorado's not going anywhere. No, they haven't quite done what I think everybody thought they were going to entrench themselves as a dynasty. But I mean, again, you can make the case, well, they could have, but Vegas is not going anywhere. Dallas is not going anywhere. Winnipeg, Vancouver, the West is
Vancouver's young too.
Exactly.
They're dangerous.
The West is going to be just an absolute slugfest if it stays like it is. And let's transition over to Dallas Mavericks. Same thing for them.
Why do you think they lost both games in Boston?
Because Boston's a better team.
Better defensive team or just a better team overall?
Better overall team. Look, Dallas in the playoffs has been fun. I think they have something to build on. But at the end of the day, everybody was looking great because Luka was at the best. And it pulls everybody up. We're seeing against a team like Boston where they cannot neutralize Luka, but they can not make it all about him, and all of a sudden everybody else is struggling. Dallas, like, this is fun. And this is actually going to blend into what we're going to talk about here in a second. I'm enjoying this, but I in no way think Dallas was going to win this series ever. Even though you can make the case, well, Boston hasn't played anybody. You know what? That doesn't matter. Great teams still are great teams, even if they didn't play anybody compared to the other team. I just don't think they're a good matchup for them.
Yes, they're not a good matchup for the Mavericks, even with the Mavericks transformation on the defensive side. The Celtics do a good job of playing the small ball really well. They can start 3 to 4 guards each night and be fine. Where the Mavericks, their defensive strength is more in the perimeter, the paint with Gafford and Lively, PJ, Jones. So I think that kind of hurts Kyrie and Doncic. They are going to get destroyed by, Jaylen Brown and Derek White and Drew Holiday. Last night, game 2, close game. They lost by 7. It was a lot closer than that.
Hit their free throws, or at least in overtime.
Yeah, they shot 23% from the 3-point line, and along what you said, they were only 2 of 3 from the free throw. They were 66.7%, literally 2 of 3. They were 16 of 24. Tatum had a bad game. Game 1, Boston Celtics, they could do no wrong shooting the ball. This game, they struggled. But the big difference, I mean, they have Drew Holiday. That's a huge difference. They have a defensive wizard in White at point guard. They started 2 point guards in this game.
Yeah.
They started Drew Holiday and White because they knew they needed to negate what Kyrie and Doncic could do.
Yep.
And it worked. And they let Jaylen Brown cook. Jaylen Brown had a pretty decent game. He had 21 points. Drew Holiday was the best player in this game last night. But
hey, give Celtics credit for trading a really good player in DFW's own Marcus Smart. Not because of anything he did wrong, but they were literally saying, okay, you know what? This hasn't worked. And that's another thing. I know people are going to say, well, they made a Western Conference final 2 years ago, so this Dallas team has been building. But this Celtic team has been building. Like, this is the culmination of a 5-year, you can actually say a 7-year. So I just think that they're further along than the Mavericks are right now. I think this is a great step for the Mavericks. I don't feel like this is the end for Dallas. I feel like, and I've told you my opinion, I think LeBron James ends up a Maverick. I think it finally happens. I think him and Kyrie and all that, and everybody can have their beliefs on LeBron, but if he's your 3rd or 4th guy, you're winning a lot of games and you're winning a lot of playoff games. So I do think that this is the beginning for Dallas, not the end. I think we're seeing valuable learning experience and also keeping Luka around long term. I think this solidifies him going to be like, you know what? We can do it here.
I felt so right about Kyrie Irving last year when Dallas traded for him, because I was like, that dude's nothing but a cancer. He is going to be so bad for this team. And I initially felt right. I felt justified because they tanked that last game so they wouldn't make the playoffs, get a better draft pick. And they got Derek Lively, which ended up being a great pick.
Might be the best pick, not named Luka or Dirk in the last 30 years for the Mavericks, if his career continues.
Yep. And then Kyrie Irving just kind of grew up. He got a family. He's happily married, has kids.
You know what else helped him? He came to Dallas, Texas, and I love Dallas. And Dallas loves the Mavs, but Dallas isn't Boston. Dallas isn't even Cleveland. Like, the Mavs are always on the side. Like, nobody cares for hell. Dirk Nowitzki was getting conned by a chick, and that was like a moment story.
Yeah.
Like, God, I still remember when all that happened. I thought for sure, well, Dirk's almost done here. But anyway, I think where he went helped a lot because he was the big story for like a couple of weeks. And then being Dallas, we started talking about the Cowboys again.
Yeah, it's very true. The Mavericks are not the number 1 team in the DFW Metroplex. And in Texas in general, it's always going to be football. You go to the high school level, the biggest funded program in all of high school is going to be football. They help the other sports. They help fund the other sports at any high school. So football is king here. With recent success, the Rangers and Stars are up there. And the Mavericks
winning. Only because they're all winning.
Only because of winning. Really, everybody here just cares about football.
Well, and let's be honest. Would Dallas care about football if Dallas wasn't the Dallas Cowboys, especially the 70s and the 90s and even the early 80s? I've always said this. Texas just loves winning. Like, I can remember when FC Dallas made that run in 2011. FC Dallas was pulling in people. Go look at the Texas Rangers attendance in 2005 when they were like 30th. Now go look at it when they were 2011 and they were 2nd. Texas loves winners. Yeah. And then football, they won early, so that entrenched it. So, yeah, you're right. And again, though, for somebody like Kyrie, I think that's the perfect spot. He doesn't get asked the important questions like, hey, let's talk about Jews or something like that. He's just allowed to kind of live. And I think he really needed that. And I think he has grown up. But I also think if you immediately put him on the Knicks or Brooklyn again, you might see a different Kyrie come out.
You kind of saw the turnaround when he was with Boston.
Early
Before he got injured. They had
Yeah.
that great start to that season. He got hurt. LeBron was even saying they kind of mended the fences.
Yeah, that's when you first started hearing that they had made up. In fact, there was, early on, there was the whole, will he go to Celtics, remember?
Yeah. And LeBron always liked playing with Kyrie, but there was everything else that with the young Kyrie Irving, that was kind of a problem. Going to Boston, he kind of started maturing a little bit. Fast forward to now, he's probably the best version of himself that there is, and they're doing well. But to your point, the Celtics, this is actually, if you look back, it's kind of an 8-year story.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, people forget about that. This isn't an upstart Celtic team. Now, they're young in key positions, but that's why I even told you this, and it's kind of why I hope the Pacers would have pulled the upset, even though I don't know if playing against Rick Carlisle would have been fun because everything's okay, but him, he would live off that revenge because I don't think that he was very happy with how it ended. But anyway, I just felt like, man, if whoever plays the Celtics are in trouble unless it was Denver, because it just felt like the Celtics. At some point, they just almost, it's like you've got to win it at this point. Like, they've been a great team for 9.5 years almost?
Yeah. I mean, ever since Brad Stevens came to Boston from Butler, they've been dominant. And then he moved into a front office role. Udoka kind of carried it on. He was kind of he knew him as a player. Then he became a coach. He became a really good coach. You're seeing it now with the Houston Rockets, who are going to be very good next year. He made them a 500-win team this year. But yeah, a couple years ago, he took Boston to the NBA Finals. They lost to the Warriors, who was probably going to be their last championship for a very long time. Then he had the whole situation with the romance with someone that works in the front office, and he got fired. And
that was all so weird, dude. Like,
I don't know. But you know what? They had the controversy, and they just replaced him with someone else. And that coach, he's 2 wins away from winning a championship and giving Boston their 18th championship in franchise history.
Now, I do want to say there's the old saying, a series doesn't start until the team at home loses. So I do
2006.
I do think people are burying the Mavericks a little early, which might be the best thing for Dallas. I think that plays into their advantage. If I'm Jason Kidd, I'm like, hey, we're the underdog. Let's just go out and have fun. I do think the Celtics win. I said that to you when when the matchups happen. But I do think Dallas wins 2 at home at least.
I think because of Kyrie's age, you kind of have a short 2 to 3 year window here.
You keep saying that, and I'm not really understanding that. Like, this isn't again, we're not talking old. Like, this is different. Like, there's nothing that tells me that Kyrie can't be like LeBron and play till he's 40.
LeBron's a once in a generation player.
But I mean, Kyrie,
I'm not sure if Kyrie's that guy. I'd like him to be that guy, obviously.
He might not want to. Now, I'm just talking about purely, can he? Yeah, I don't. I think I don't know. I feel like he could easily in 6 years, if he wants to play, be playing. Now he might evolve his game different. Maybe he becomes more like Jason Kidd at the end of his career. I still don't understand how Jason Kidd went from can't hit the broadside of a barn to where he became one of the most trusted guys you wanted shooting a 3 when it mattered. But yeah, I do disagree with you. I think Kyrie could play easily 6-7 more years productively.
Can't forget they used to call him Ace and Kid because he had no J. I would love for you to be right there. I would love for you to be right because him playing for another 5-6 years, just another 3 years at his current eliteness, I'd be very happy with that because you can keep building around this team. PJ is a great compliment. Derek Lively's a great compliment. Gafford's a great compliment. If you're going to be a team like Boston, it seems like you got to have some guards that can defend, kind of like Drew Holiday can. No, Drew Holiday's in his early 30s. You don't know how long he can also go.
Yeah,
as well.
exactly. That's a good point.
But yeah, Derek White, he's a lockdown, shutdown defender too. So they just have so many talented players on that team. But like you were saying earlier, this is a team that's been built for the last 8 years. I would even go back and say 10 years. This is like kind of the culmination. They have to win a championship at some point with this team. This team is too talented to not ever win a championship.
You bring up a good point, though. If Dallas were to come back and win,
like what Miami did to Dallas in 06.
Miami did Dallas 06. But that felt different too. That never, even when Dallas was up 2-0, it never felt like Dallas was dominating. Let's be honest. Boston has dominated at this point for most of the games. But if they were to somehow lose this, then you get into that theory. You know, my theory, I don't care how young you are. I don't care how talented you are. If you have a complete collapse in a championship series, you might as well just throw that team away and start over because it will never come back together. I don't know why. That's just how it works. I don't mean just losing. It has to be a collapse a la 2011 Texas because I still will contend this as we transition into baseball. I still contend if Texas wins that 2011 World Series, they might have did a run where they won 3 out of 4 or something like that. Like that team was still way young. That team was still viable. But then when that happened, as John Daniels said, you have to figure out changes. And that's how Ian Kinsler gets, Anyway, let's talk Texas Rangers. Right now, they're 31-34, 5 games out of what? Did you have something to say?
No, it's just the Rangers have not been playing well lately.
No, but I contend that people are overrating what's going on right now. I'm not going to say it's early. That's not it. I'm going to say if this team with Corey Seager missing extended time, Josh Young missing extended time, Evan Carter, now you're starting to wonder, is that going to be why Evan Carter's never great? Because he's now having a second back issue. But anyway, all of that. And they're 31-34. And here's the most important thing. They have a plus 13 run differential. I'm real big in that. They have a better run differential than the Seattle Mariners, who are 37-30, because Seattle has great pitching. Their offense is where they struggle.
Yeah.
And I still want to tell people, look, the Rangers are fine. Now, it is starting to form that they're going to have to win the division or not make the playoffs. I don't think a wild card will come out of the West unless 3 teams get really, really hot.
Yeah, because it looks like the Kansas City Royals are here to stay. So the Royals, the Orioles, or the Yankees are going to dominate 2 of those wild card positions. And there's third one for grabs, and the Minnesota Twins are still in it. The Tigers are still in it.
Toronto,
the Sox are the Red Sox, not the White Sox.
Tampa Bay.
Yeah, Tampa Bay. They're still so the AL East is really good. The last place team is the Rays, and that was a team that had 99 wins last season. They had that 13-0 start in 2023.
Yep.
They have the same record as the Rangers. Rangers are in second place in the AL West. The Rays are in last place in the AL East. So yeah, it's a very competitive division right now with the AL East. Having said that, Rangers, to your point, they need to win the division. I really don't see the Orioles going on a tailspin. I don't see the Royals going on a tailspin. I think they're just a young, good team that finally started. I think they're exceeding expectations. They gave Bobby Witt Jr. that big contract in the offseason. I still expected them to get to 70 wins. I liked what they were doing, building the farm system like they did 10 years ago. That team that made the World Series in 2014 and 2015 ended up winning it in 2015. So, I mean, The Tigers are going to be a dangerous team in the next couple of years. They're going to be a fringe wild card team this year. But yeah, man, I want to see what the Rangers do after the All-Star break.
By the way, bringing up Kansas City in 2014, 2015, and even 2013 or 2013, they started better.
Yep.
Them in Texas, that shows you, you have the Yankees who will spin. You have the Dodgers who will spin. You have Tampa Bay who doesn't spin. But then Texas and Kansas City shows you that within a 15-year period, you can be great, get really bad, and then be great again if you make the right decisions in all of it.
Yep.
Now, people say, well, Texas spin. Yeah, but, outside of Max and DeGrom, they've spent well. And I really think that I think spending for DeGrom, I've never heard them say this, but it wouldn't shock me if down the road Chris Young says, hey, yeah, we probably knew that DeGrom wasn't going to be, able to stay, but signing him validated us. And I think it did. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it shows you that you can win and lose in a 15-year period and be on the highs and the lows and still be, a fun program. When you look at teams like Oakland who haven't, they were good here and there and they haven't done nothing. Or Toronto, man, Toronto and San Diego feels like the two teams that we're going to look back 10 years from now and go, how did they not win more?
Well, especially a year or two ago when San Diego was spending buku money to get Machado.
And they all seemed like good deals at the time. It wasn't like this wasn't Chan-Ho Park signing with Texas back then. Mm-hmm. These all felt like, oh yeah, this is the right move. They're getting better.
Yeah, Yu Darvish. Who was the guy from the Braves? Oh, Soto. They got Juan Soto from the Braves, who's now with the Yankees, and the Yankees are killing it right now. Blake Snell, the Cy Young winner last season. It was good moves for those Padres, and they actually made it to the NLCS 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just the team that for some reason they're just right now they're 34 and 35. They do have a plus 19 run differential, so there is hope. And they did end the season last year on a run that got them to 500.
Yep.
So
boy, National League sucks this year, dude.
It kind of does. I'm really hoping
it sucks.
I mean, I was big on a lot of the Central Division teams, like the Pirates, who are still in it, but them and the Reds, like kind of baseball blue bloods that have been around forever. They are young. They have some talent. They kind of made some noise last year before they faded, just like with the Tigers in the American League. Those are three teams I'm going to watch for, and I'm going to see them develop the rest of this decade. I think those will be the three of the best teams in baseball when it's all said and done.
If you were to get to call the two, who would you want outside of Texas right now? Who would you want to see in the World Series?
Oh, okay. So let me start with the National League. If I had to pick a National League team, I would go with the Reds. That I want, not who I think will, but who I want. So it would be the Reds versus in the AL. It's almost like a toss-up between three teams for me. But if you put a gun to my head and make me choose, I'm going to go ahead and choose the Royals. But my other two teams were the Tigers and the Orioles.
So you and I are 1,000% different. I want to see Los Angeles versus the Yankees. I want 1981 back. I want 1978 and 77. I want all the days back in the 30s and 40s. I want to see those two teams go at it again. Just because I think that's awesome. Now, I would have no problem if Tigers or, actually outside of those two, Seattle. You and I talked about this before, for the Rangers baseball, partly because they sucked for so long, but also just because of the division they've been in. I don't look at Seattle or Oakland as rivals. There was a moment in the 90s with Seattle, but it never really materialized. With LA or California or Anaheim, whatever the fuck you want to be, Angels, I sure, there were moments, late the 2010s when C.J. Wilson went over there, and then when Josh Hamilton went over there. But other than that, like Seattle, I would love to see them win a World Series. I think that town and that franchise deserves that.
The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim
in California.
Yeah, it's such a weird name. I know they were just trying to get that LA market just for advertising reasons or marketing reasons, but yeah. All right, yeah. I mean, 2018, you kind of got something close to it. You got the Red Sox and the Dodgers.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome. And I want to see the Dodgers and Yankees because 81's about when I started remembering what I was watching, and I remember watching that series. And my dad was a Ranger fan, but my dad grew up a Yankee fan.
It was a weird season. It was a strike, and it was like basically you had a what was it? The winner of the first half of the season versus the winner of the second half.
That's a minor league thing. In minor league, in a lot of leagues, they split seasons. And part of the reason why is because minor league teams can change so much. Mm-hmm. So what you have in May, like you can have a team in May that 42 games up over everybody, and then that same team, because of movement in August, are terrible. So they wanted to kind of reward, so they split it, and then you play the playoffs. So as you said, the 81 strike, that's what they did. In fact, a lot of people feel that in the National League that year, Houston might have been the best overall team. But they split. They lost to L.A. in the NLCS, and then they played the Yankees. But anyway, my dad was a Yankee fan because before the Rangers, that's, people don't realize in the old days, in my dad's days, you listened on radio and you got national regional coverage. So like my dad could hear the St. Louis Cardinals and the New York Yankees. And the Yankees were, the Yankees were 45 years of everything we talk about the Cowboys, in any other sport. Honestly, when you think of sports, the Yankees are probably the first thing anybody thinks about.
Yeah. Because you think about dynasties, legendary teams, legendary players.
They've got so many great players that at some point they're going to have to start doing numbers like 12B.
Yeah.
Because and they've had so many, even though they've had these great big stretches of nothing, they then do like they did in the early 2000s and late 90s and run another 15 years. Yet now we're in they haven't been to the World Series since 2010, 14 years. Think about that. That sounds crazy to think about.
This might be their longest stretch or one of their longest stretches.
Yeah, because they kind of had that fluke 81. 81 to what, 97? 6. So yeah, 14. Yeah, this is probably going to be the longest one. But anyway.
So yeah, that was when we talked about the baseball look back that we did last week. The first look back we did related to baseball. Don Mattingly was in his first year with the Yankees was 82. His last year was 95.
Yep.
He never got to experience the World Series.
Or a playoff.
In 95 he did, but it was more of they were a wild card team.
Yeah, that's right.
And they lost to the Indians.
Yep, that's right.
But he was not an integral part of that team anymore. And so it kind of sucks for someone like him. So I'm trying to think of any good Yankee player right now that's never been to the World Series. There's a good number of them.
Yeah, you're right. Again, it feels so weird to feel like it was that long ago. Hell, just even talking about the first Ranger 2 World Series. You're talking 13, 14 years ago. I still contend, at least for me, 1997 to 2008 baseball, that was some of the most we were just talking about that last week. Just the Yankees and the Red Sox were both finally consistently good at the same time. And I will still contend, even though I'm a Ranger fan, and we now actually have the Rangers. We'll all talk about the 2011 collapse, and you talk about the Toronto Blue Jays, the Joey Bautista, but Texas actually has a pretty good playoff history now. Like the Rangers, when they make the playoffs, tend to go pretty far. And so that's cool. But I will still contend, I don't know if there was ever a better playoffs than 04 Red Sox Yankees.
Yeah. I've never seen anyone being up 3-0 and then ended up losing the series. That was the most Red Sox way of winning a World Series. You're down 3-0 against your greatest rival. You win 4 straight. You make it, and then you never lose again because you swept the World Series against another blue blood baseball team, St. Louis Cardinals. It's just the storybook ending.
That's a good point right there.
You can't even write that. Like, you can't even make that into a movie. It's kind of like the Kurt Warner movie we watched last year. You really should not have made that into a movie because the premise is too ridiculous. Like, even Hollywood can't even Hollywood that movie up.
Even though it was a bad movie.
It was a terrible movie. It was like a TV movie.
I still go back to that scene where he goes into the office with Mike Martz and he gives that long speech and everything. And I will give the movie credit because you could tell Mike Martz would be like this. He basically was like, okay, and you still suck. You know, I totally believe that Mike Martz in the movie, that's Mike Martz in real life. But anyway, speaking of, let's talk big thing going on. Have you heard of this player named Caitlin Clark? She plays rugby. Oh, basketball. No, Caitlin Clark. You know, all the WNBA stuff. It's been drama, which I find funny because all these guys and everybody's getting all in a butthurt about all this drama. And I'm like, why is the WNBA not embracing this and playing this up to saturate us with all this? Because the world right now wants to know about Caitlin Clark and they want to know about the WNBA. So why is the WNBA not playing this more, Noe? They should be embracing this crap.
I 100% agree with you. I feel they should be turning it up a dial. Kind of what the NCAA did with Caitlin Clark last year. They were turning it up. They allowed this because it's good for business. And in the end, this is a business. This might have been a sport you played as a kid in your backyard, in your friend's back garage. But when it comes all down to it, you want ratings. You want people to come to the arena. You look at the Indiana Fever, like, hey, Kennedy Carter, the latest controversy. Oh, okay. The Olympic snub was the latest controversy.
Not even a controversy. We'll talk about that, but go back to Carter because I know where you're going with this.
Kennedy Carter had a flagrant foul on Caitlin Clark.
Like the 1988 Detroit Pistons would have been proud of that foul.
Yeah, and it probably would have just not been a foul back then. Yeah, it was. I just don't get it because she is shining a light. Like Kelsey Plum, before Caitlin Clark came into the WNBA, she was only really known as, oh yeah, she's married to Darren Waller.
Exactly.
At least the recently retired New York
We'll talk about here in a minute when we close out because I got some theories on that.
Now we look at her. Oh, she's actually really good at basketball. Yep. She is an all-world talent, along with the other 3 stars on the the Vegas Aces.
Yep.
Along with Becky Hammond, who should be an NBA head coach. And like you're pointing this light on Breanna Stewart, the other rookie Angel Reese with the Chicago Sky. There's just so much talent in the WNBA. I'm a big proponent of the WNBA. This is not the 1997 WNBA where it was just the Cynthia Cooper and the gang and then everybody else.
At least at least the Comets were fun to watch, though.
They were fun to watch. They won the first 4 championships, and they were really dominant and fun to watch. But now it's every team has talent. Like last year, the Seattle Storm kind of had a downturn, but they kind of got a good talent in Jewel Lloyd, and now they're kind of building around her, and they're actually pretty competitive this season. The WNBA has a lot of talent. Let Caitlin Clark shine a light to that talent and just let the business grow. Don't become dependent on the NBA to subsidize you. You already, because of her, you got charter flights for every team, for every game. Just build off of that. Just just let her try to keep building the game. Even with this Kennedy Carter situation, she said she didn't even want an apology. She knows how the game is played. She's old school, kind of like I always compare her to Larry Bird.
Oh yeah, I think that's the natural comparison, and fairly so.
I know Maravich is the easier comparison just because of the high scoring volume, but to me, she's more like Larry Bird. I mean, just where they grew up is very similar. It would have made even more sense if she went to Boston because she's a devout Catholic. But does Boston have a team?
No,
they have a team.
Dude, the Wings for Dallas, like they were supposed to be decent this year, and they're 3-7.
Yeah, they were a top 4 or 5 team last year, and yeah, they're just off to a bad start. I'm not sure if they'll recover, but they have talent. So talent usually wins out eventually. So they'll definitely be in the wild card playoff mix come season end. So
we'll see. But the other thing that you talked about was the Olympics. Look, if they'd have taken her, fine. If they wouldn't have, fine. Let's remember Christian Laettner was taken over Shaquille O'Neal, and he didn't really play. I don't think she was going to play. People need to understand Olympic basketball and women's, it ain't WNBA. Women's Olympic basketball is dominant. So like getting to even be on the roster and also other people need to remember they had an not open trial, but they had kind of like a training camp, but it was during the Final Four. Now, I kind of want to ask women's basketball, why? Like, why would you do that on the Final Four weekend? That seems kind of dumb in of itself. Like, do it 2 weeks later. Like, let these girls in basketball, even if you don't think they're going to make the team, at least let them experience how it works and everything. But anyway, point is, I don't care about the Olympic thing. She wasn't going to play anyway. I think we got to worry about, I know she broke a couple records, but they're kind of more like, And I know she's been okay. She hasn't been great. But whatever it is, the WNBA just needs to embrace it. Like, accept it, understand it, play it up. Just like the Semi-Pro. Watch that movie with Will Ferrell. It's freaking hilarious. But part of their rivalries were, hey, we got to do this because it looks good on TV. If you got to wrestle it for a little while, do it. Go WWE. Hell, give me Angel Reese doing mic work at halftime and Caitlin Clark running out. That would actually be kind of fun to watch. But they've got to understand you can want to be a valid sport, but if you don't play up the drama and get the people come watching, you're never going to be, as you say, nothing but the NBA subsidizing you.
Yeah. They need to be an independent business. That would be real progress for the sport, for women in sports. Like I've been trying to follow the U.S. National Women's Soccer League the last few years.
Yeah, you've been into it.
It really wasn't until this year, though, because of someone like Trinity Rodman, Dennis Rodman's daughter, and then there's a Ethiopian Eritrean girl, Lily Johannes, who's killing it. She's only 16, 17 years old. She's really young, but she's a superstar.
Yeah.
So I want women's sports to do well, especially like basketball and soccer. Just let them show their character. They don't need to be robots. Let them have personality. Let them have some finesse, some je ne sais quoi. Just let them have something. Like, let them have some freedom to be themselves. And people want that. It's just like public speaking. People get so nervous with public speaking. People want you to succeed inherently.
Yeah.
If I'm giving a speech to a group of people, I should never be nervous because they want me to succeed. Just let these women be who they are, show their talent, and the rest will be history.
It has been kind of odd that so many people have gotten up in arms about this drama. Like, how dare they? Like, really? Like, I mean, that's what sports are, right? Like, we go back to, I think everybody has that comparison of Clark and Reese, Bird and
John's Magic. Yeah.
And I think that's very apropos. And again, I go back to NBA leaned into that. Like NBA leaned into that rivalry back in the time when there wasn't social media and stuff. And so for the WNBA, yeah, I know you want to be valid, but you can be valid and still have drama. I mean, rivalries aren't just on the field. Like what makes a rivalry great is the games, but also the shit talking outside it. How they, you're going to see it when we record our, the Rivals show with Washington. The Washington Redskins in 75 or 6 put a wreath, a funeral wreath in the locker room of the Cowboys. That's the kind of shit that's what we talk about now. And so I think the WNBA is worried too much about being looked upon as a real sports league. Yeah, you're really not. I mean, neither is the USFL or Arena. Speaking of Arena, speaking of USFL, did you even know the season was over?
Oh, the UFL?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, they did playoffs last week. The championship this week. Yeah. See?
But it wasn't in Arlington, was it?
No. Well, no, I don't mean the championship game. I mean the playoffs.
I know.
I just sucked this year.
I know they suck. That's why I was messing.
Well, actually, they finished 3-7. I think.
Wait. Wade Phillips is celebrating an XFL conference championship victory.
Yeah, you know who's that coach?
I had no idea.
Really? Yeah, he's been there for like 3 years now. It's like his longest tenure. Yeah.
So Sunday, June 16th
is the championship.
Stallions, the 9-1 Stallions versus the Brahmas, which is a very rock appropriated name.
Wait, just Stallions and Brahmas in of themselves. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's the thing from Texas Monthly. In the UFL, Wade Phillips has been anything but a lousy coach. I never thought he was a lousy head coach at all.
He's Mr. Fix-It.
Yeah, he's just Mr. Can't Sustain It.
Now, you know what, though? To his credit, the first year at every team, he does improve the team somehow. Think about the 93 Broncos. They kind of catered the year prior. They had that good start to the season. Then they kind of lost every game after that. Finished, I think, 8-8, missed the playoffs. Reeves got fired, went to become the Giants head coach. And Phillips became the head coach in 93. They were 9-7. They made the playoffs, lost to the Raiders, but they were a markedly improved team.
Yeah.
Fast forward to the Buffalo Bills in the late 90s. Same scenario. They make the playoffs consecutive.
Well, I think I know the whole 2007 Dallas happened and then 2008, but I think what solidified him in the minds of people as not a great coach was the Rob Johnson, Doug Flutie decision.
Hey, I agree with those people because he should have started Doug Flutie, who kind of got them to that point in the playoffs. Wade Phillips went with the guy he thought was the future, but he was not the here and now. The here and now was Doug Flutie. The future was Rob Johnson. And it kind of messed up the team success for that season, and it kind of messed up Rob Johnson's future success.
Yeah, well, I mean, Rob Johnson admits he didn't he was all about just having fun and he didn't really care. So I don't know
if you had that talented of a team. But think about fast forward a few years later. Let's say the Music City Miracle never happens and the Buffalo Bills go on a run and they actually make it to the Super Bowl.
Which they could have. That was a really, I'm not saying they were as good as their Super Bowl teams, but that was not a bad Buffalo team by any stretch.
The St. Louis Rams made the Super Bowl. It was not a strong year, is what I'm trying to say. The Tennessee Titans played the Rams. There was a changing of the guards in 1999. There was opportunity for the Bills or whoever to make a run. What could have been? Because if the Bills had done that, they would have just built the team around Rob Johnson going forward. Drew Bledsoe, this is the part I'm trying to get at. He would not have been a Bill in 2002. 2 years later, he would not have been a Buffalo Bill because Rob Johnson would have been entrenched as the franchise quarterback, given a fat contract, given more talent around him. Ownership would have just spent lavishly because, oh yeah, we won a Super Bowl or we made it to the Super Bowl. We're back.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't know if Rob Johnson would have ever even been that good. I mean, like I said, he's been pretty open about like he was definitely the Sofer bra, like, not
but
really.
Think about like maybe they go 9-7 or 8-8 the next couple of years. They think, oh, Rob Johnson, he's still the prototype quarterback we want. So let's just go ahead and build around him.
No, you're not right. I agree with you that.
Where does Bledsoe go? Where does Bledsoe go after the 0-1 season with the Patriots? Just saying.
Does he end up in Dallas earlier?
He could. Dallas was in the Dave Campo years, Larry Allen's best years.
01, 02 Bledsoe, I would not have hated it as a Cowboy. Like, I mean,
just a few years earlier when he's still a little bit more mobile than he ended up being in 05 and 06.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of NFL, let's talk about. I got to talk about this. Darren Waller.
31-year-old, all everything tight end. Darren Waller, when he was healthy, announces his retirement. A few months removed from his divorce from Kelsey Plum, which we referenced as the Las Vegas Aces star player.
Yeah.
He has a music video out. I'm sure you've jammed out to it several times.
That's terrible.
He's only 31. He had some substance abuse issues. He got clean. He seems like he's going through some mental health issues.
Well, I was going to say is earlier this week, Delonte West got arrested again.
That's the status. Yeah.
Doesn't it feel like Darren Waller's headed down that path? Because if you read between the lines with the divorce, Plum basically was like, I can't do anymore. Like I've done everything I can as far as I can without just completely giving up my life to make sure that he's okay. You watch that video, which by the way is not a bad video. It's very well produced. But man, if you're not seeing somebody screaming for help, and he claims that the main reason he's retiring was a medical situation. He has not explained what it was, but he said that last year, after suffering a hamstring injury against the Jets in week 8, he goes, I started to feel like the fever coming on. The fever starts to build. I start to get chills and stuff like that. By the time I pull into my parking lot at my condo and get out of my car, I'm shaking pretty violently, like uncontrollably. He said he couldn't breathe. He called 911. Okay. I'm saying this, as you know, as somebody who I've dealt with substance abuse issues in my past. And everything he's talking about getting out of that car sounds like withdrawals. Like it sounds like withdrawals. Because the hardest part about like mainly alcohol, and it's like why like Amy Winehouse died, was withdrawals can be that's the scariest part. And that was the scariest part for me. And withdrawals they can kill you. And everything he's talking about sounds like withdrawals. And then going off of what his ex-wife said about, I just feel like the poor guy's he's just not doing well. And I'll joke aside, I don't care what team he plays for. Him personally, he seems like a really good dude. He's fun to watch when he's healthy. And I really, really hope that we're not going to hear some bad news in the next couple of years.
Well, I mean, his story was very inspirational.
Is it not like Josh Hamilton in a way?
Basically, yeah. Josh Hamilton, number 1 overall pick by the Rays, had a lot of substance abuse issues.
That will be a look back show for sure. The career of Josh Hamilton.
Yeah. Kind of got his stuff together in 06 or 05, 06. I think it was with the Reds at this point, and he had a pretty decent season with them. And the Rangers picked him up, and then the rest was history. Like next 4 or 5 years, he was killing it. He was the big talk in baseball. I remember my last year in college, I saw a lot of people wearing his jerseys. So it was kind of early on in the development of him. But yeah, by the 08 All-Star game in New York, I think it was the last year or the last year in the old Yankee Stadium, the first year, he cranked out 28 or so home runs in the first round of the home run derby. Yankee fans were already envisioning him playing in New York in 2 years.
Oh, yeah, that was always the joke after that. Yeah, it was like so it was 08.
Yeah.
And that was the joke. By the way, fun thing, he didn't win the home run derby because the home run derby has the stupidest freaking rules in the history of home run derbies. They've never been able to just simply go, hey, whoever hits the most wins. But anyway, but yeah, I mean, and Darren Waller never reached those heights. Let's make sure we're clear. Josh Hamilton, 2009 to 2011, maybe the best baseball player on the planet at that point.
2010 MVP, led the Rangers to the World Series in 2010. I kind of wish 2011 ended up differently because that would have been a Hollywood movie where after all the crap he dealt with his entire career, he still hits a 2-run home run in the 11th inning in Game 6 in the clinching game. If they had just held on with 2 outs and strike 2, that would have been a movie.
And you could make the case that might have been the most clutch ever. People forget about that. People only remember the Nelson Cruz and they remember Game 7. But people forget that literally the next inning, they did it again. They got the lead. But anyway, point is with Darren Waller, I just feel like, man, this is a guy that's spiraling. And I hope he figures it out. Because like I said, you and I were just talking about Delonte West, former Maverick, really solid NBA player, but he has been in mental health crisis for now. I mean, golly, we're talking 15 years because he was having these issues before he even became a Maverick, which I think was his last stop in basketball. But Darren Waller just kind of feels like he's doing the same thing, and it sucks, man, because I don't know. You can predict this stuff when you've seen it enough.
You know, back in November when I saw it, you all right, man?
Yeah, just hold that call from last week.
No, I saw Darren Waller in some interviews last year, and he looked pretty healthy and fine. Mm-hmm. Like I see him adding some tattoos to his body. Like he seemed like he was just doing fine. Like he was just chilling and enjoying life in New York. Kind of coming to the grips that he won't be with his wife at the time because Plum played or currently still plays for the Las Vegas Aces. He was playing for the Las Vegas Raiders, so kind of was. It made sense, or not made sense, but like it was. I'm trying to figure out the word here. It was convenient. That's the word. Well, it was convenient. They lived in the same city.
Well, I was gonna say he seems like at least right now in his life, and I know this. Like as long as somebody's around him and kind of keeping tabs on him and kind of, like. It's 3:00 in the afternoon, and instead of like you just by yourself and you've got $2 million in your bank account, you have somebody there saying, hey, let's do this, let's do that. And then as soon as and let's not forget, he went to New York. I mean, every city's, every city now you can find anything, but it's still LA and New York are the two that if you're having issues, you probably don't want to be in those towns. And as you said, he's by himself. Now they're divorced. Now he's retiring. And by the way, I could see him easily cleaning things up and being back in the league in 2025.
I would love that for him.
Oh, I love his story. I think he's a fun tight end to watch.
There was no more dominant tight end in 2020 and 21 than him when he was healthy and he was right. It was a matchup nightmare. And I'm saying that knowing that George Kittle and Travis Kelce were at their prime during this time period. So that's the level of respect I have for Darren Waller.
All right, here's a fun one. Right now, greatest tight end ever.
That is a good question to ask. I'll go ahead and say Tony Gonzalez now, but ask me in 4 years, and I'll probably have a different answer.
I feel most talented to play the game with results, all that, but also injuries hamstrung them is Gronk.
Yes, Rob Gronkowski for sure. And mainstream people don't understand how football smart he was and how talented he really was.
Yeah, and he wasn't as stupid as people. He had fun. That's not being stupid. I think for just being consistent, I hate to say this, and I know it sounds weird, but Jason Witten, give him credit. He rolled out of bed and he caught 80 passes a year. I think for being consistent and great, Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
I think people don't understand, yes, tight ends block and catch, blah, blah, blah. But that depends on the system. And Travis Kelce and Andy Reid's system does everything that Andy Reid wants him to. And we saw last year, he's in the point of his career where in the regular season, he's going to struggle at times because he knows when he needs to wake up. And you saw from the playoffs to the Super Bowl, Travis Kelce still has it. He still's there for that moment. So that's where I don't think there's one. I like Tony Gonzalez, but I kind of always also kind of felt he kind of was just a stat machine because of the teams he played for, especially Atlanta.
Yeah.
And that's not a knock on him by any stretch. But I'm just saying and this is my knock with Witten. How impactful were you? Like, how good Dallas, like, without Jason Witten, would Dallas have lost anything?
Well, for Tony Romo, Witten was his security blanket.
Couldn't any tight end end up being that?
I think Witten was great because he, for some reason, found a way to be wide open, given how unathletic he was, given how slow he was. But he had the high football IQ. He just knew how to get open. He'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I'm fully sure of that. Actually, I think next season he'll be eligible for his first.
So you're not wrong, but I'm sorry. I got to do it this new way. But are you telling me Jason Witten's a first-time ballot, but DeMarcus Ware wasn't?
He should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer.
I don't think Jason Witten is either. I think he's in the second ballot, but I think they'll do the exact. I think the DeMarcus Super Bowl. I think the DeMarcus Ware one was kind of a like, you were great, but man, it felt like Dallas left some things on the table. I think that happens with Witten as well.
Which sucks because, like, to me, that sucks. That's a terrible reason.
And I like Jason Witten. I don't want to make it sound like I don't like Jason Witten, but I've always said like the thing I got so frustrated with was Jason Witten would commit a penalty, and if you watch the Cowboys, that happened with not every day, but it happened consistently. But then the broadcasters were like, "Well, that's really weird. Jason Witten usually doesn't get penalties." Yeah, he did. Same thing with DeMarcus Ware. Oh, wow, DeMarcus Ware's offside. That doesn't happen. And then you go look at the stats, and like DeMarcus Ware literally led the league 5 years, which is fine. But I'm just saying, I just feel like Jason Witten gets the benefit of the broadcasters loving him for whatever reason. And then other tight ends who were just as good doesn't get the same type of coverage.
Look, I know you have a big old love affair for Algie Crumpler. Just come out the closet and go ahead and say it.
Algie, call me. No, I actually, you know what it comes down to? I think Jay Novacek should be a Hall of Fame tight end. I think Jay Novacek should be in the Hall of Fame.
That is a good point, but he had such a short time of dominance.
But so did Sandy Koufax. But he was so dominant. Jay Novacek in 1991 to 1996, there was no other tight end you wanted catching the ball other than maybe Keith Jackson. And Keith Jackson, his problem was he just didn't end up on the right teams until it was too late in his career. I think just pure physicality, Keith Jackson's the most talented tight end we've seen.
You could go back to college for that because he played at Oklahoma.
7 catches, 500 yards.
What a crazy decision he made after being recruited in high school. Why would you go to Oklahoma when they're just going to run the ball every play?
Because you got to remember, even then, tight ends were not like, even in high school, it wasn't like you had a high school tight end catching 1,400 yards of football. It was still blocked. And honestly, this sounds crazy. At Oklahoma, he knew he was going to get 4 or 5 chances a game with the play action pull out, and he's wide open. But yeah, just anyway, I it's nothing against Witten. I just feel like Jay Novacek gets really lost in that discussion. And you're right, maybe not as long as career, but man, it kind of goes back to maybe I'm a little frustrated. Like every Steeler that pooped on the field in the Super Bowl era got in. Yet when you look at the 90s Cowboys, yeah, the obvious ones, Aikman, turning back to Larry Allen, Emmett, Irvin, Charles Haley. But like, why is Ken Norton Jr. not a Hall of Famer? Like Ken Norton Jr., I don't give a shit if you get 4 All-Pros. There is not a linebacker you didn't want on your weak side between 1991 and 1998 in the NFL. Ken Norton Jr. was a beast for Dallas and for San Francisco. He should be in the Hall of Fame.
Won 3 straight Super Bowls.
Darren Woodson should be in the Hall of Fame.
He would have been the only player from the 92 draft in the Hall of Fame. And I really thought he was going to make it this season.
I think Darren will get in.
I
think
so.
Woodson has a lot. Again, Woodson's it's just a numbers game. And sadly, they might have to back off a few years. That's how Drew was. Drew Pearson was a finalist a couple times in the 90s, and then but he will eventually get in. Again, we go back to the opponents. Too many opponents just talk about how important Darren Woodson was.
Yeah.
When it comes to that. All right. Anything else you want to talk about?
Just a couple, I guess. Dan Hurley.
Excuse me. I'm not as shocked as a lot of people are. Like Dan Hurley with the Lakers next year, if everybody comes back, probably wins a title or close. But where are the Lakers 3 years from now? Like, where are the Lakers 5 years from now? Dan Hurley is still young enough that he's looking not just for now, he's looking for 4 or 5 years down the road. So I wasn't as shocked as a lot of people were about this.
I'm not shocked either, but for a different reason. I'm not shocked because Dan Hurley, I feel, is better suited for the college game just because of his coaching style. He is kind of like Harbaugh, very demanding, very aggressive, in your face type coach, which works well with young adult men or boys that are trying to become men. But it kind of wears thin in the pro sport where they're all men.
I agree with you, but I do think Jim Harbaugh has that ability, and I think we'll see it now because I think he's with the Chargers. Either they don't succeed or he's there for the next 20 years. I don't think Harbaugh moves after this. So I think you're going to see the evolution of his coaching where he can remember what it was like when he was a pro quarterback and be more relaxed. Or if you're right, maybe they're one of those, he's churning that roster every 4 or 5 years.
He was with the 49ers for 40 years. That's the same number of times, like someone that goes in there as a freshman, graduates as a senior, over 4 years. Now, with that, I think it was Trent Baalke's fault, the GM for the 49ers at the time.
Yeah, they had a power struggle for some weird reason.
Yeah, I think if the front office structure was better, I think Harbaugh would have still remained a 49er. But it kind of showed toward their 2014 collapse, and then he left and became the Wolverine coach, and the rest is history. They were consistent winners, consistent title contenders. Had a bit of a dip in the late 2010s, but they kind of resurrected themselves during the COVID era, and they kind of just continued that. That last year's team, they were just so good. He was suspended for 3 games or so. And
what do you think about that, though? Like, is that just that Bill Belichick that, you do whatever it takes to win type philosophy? Do you think that this is something that hangs on Harbaugh?
Wait. Like, what do you mean?
Like, when we look back, like some people to this day still, when you bring up Bill Belichick, go, he's a cheater. He's a cheater. he's a cheater? Do you think that do you
I
think
don't.
does anything in the NFL that
I don't, because he already served his time.
Yeah.
He was suspended for games. Then they still won, and they won just by running the ball.
Yeah.
They just overpowered, like AKA. When I say running the ball, they mean AKA overpowering their team. I still remember last season against Penn State. They just ran the ball the entire second half. I think McCarthy was hurt though, but like they just ran the ball the entire second half and they still won.
Yeah.
That's dominance. That's great recruiting, great offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and other assistant coaches. Great talent. That's something that's very hard to do, and he was able to do it. And that was in year 9 or 10 with Michigan. So kudos to him.
No, I don't disagree. I'm just curious to see. I'm just curious to see how it'll work out. If you're the Lakers now, I mean, like, who do you turn to? I mean, Dan Hurley's turned you down. What happened? So I will admit, I don't know where I was. What happened with JJ Redick? Did he drop out, or did the Lakers move on from him?
They moved on, but now they're back on the Redick train.
So he'll probably be the next head coach, which I'm fine with. I'd like to see what he does.
Redick was the damsel that was there. You could always get her.
Yeah.
But you wanted to explore other options. So if it was me and I was JJ Redick, I would turn that down.
Why?
Because you're not the number one option.
Yeah, but so what? I mean, if you're good enough, and if you think you're good enough, you can be the fifth option. It'll just simply prove them wrong.
I don't know. I would have a chip. I guess it's more personality. I would have a chip on my shoulder.
That's my point. Yes, have a chip on your shoulder. Use that to prove to them that they're wrong. Is my point.
True, but it seems like he's doing well outside of that. Like he's in that podcast game. He seems to be pretty popular. What's going best for him? What's working best for him is his relationship with LeBron James. James loves him.
Yeah.
From what I've been told. And if he's going to remain a Laker, you want to make LeBron happy. And I think JJ Redick as head coach would have made him happy. Why they had to go the Dan Hurley route, who doesn't really mesh well with what LeBron James wants to do.
Yeah, that's
beyond me.
That was
I mean, they were going to commit 6 years to Hurley for $70 million for a pairing with LeBron. I mean, LeBron James is not going to last 6 years, but LeBron didn't work well with Mike Brown. Even though they had a success, they never won a championship. LeBron needs a guy like Frank Vogel. LeBron needs a guy like...
He's already went through Vogel.
And he won a championship with Vogel.
This is one of those I will fully admit. I don't know how much all that really is true. Like, we don't know like how much LeBron likes, dislikes, whatever.
Yeah.
I do know he likes JJ Redick. By the way, you do know what was JJ Redick's last team, right?
No.
The Dallas Mavericks.
I had no idea it was a Maverick.
I didn't either. He played in 2021 for 13 games, averaged 11 points.
I had no idea.
You kind of remember now, though, the whole bringing him out of retirement thing, like, because that was when they thought that they were, like about to be a playoff team. But anyway, I never understood the Dan Hurley period. College basketball, pro basketball, that's one of those sports that the difference between the two is so vast. Yeah. Same thing with college baseball. You never hear of a college baseball head coach, and it is funny how we call them head coaches in college, but you never hear of a college head coach in baseball going over to manage in the major leagues and be successful, because it's completely two different sports. Yeah. I feel the same way with college basketball and pro basketball. I didn't understand the Dan Hurley thing. I think they're just trying to make a splash. And Dallas addressed it. They locked down Jason Kidd. There was somebody else that did the same thing. I can't remember who it was. Somebody else locked down somebody else because of it. So the Lakers, they might get lucky and pull one out their ass, but all of a sudden the Lakers are they're in a weird state right now. That's why I think LeBron's not on the team next year.
Yeah, I don't think he is. I really think if it's a perfect world, he's going to follow his son, Bronny James, and go wherever he goes.
I think Bronny goes back college. I still think Bronny goes back college one more year, mainly because, and let's be fair, I think people forget the whole cardiac thing, and so they're like, "Oh, well, he had a shitty college season," but what he did at the NBA Combine, in my opinion, at least showed there's something there. You can work with that. So I can see him going. Of course, the USC head coach. Where did he go?
He went to LSU?
SMU.
SMU. Sorry.
Where is the player that LeBron has said he regrets now not playing more with? Where's he at? Dallas, Kyrie.
Oh, yeah, Kyrie. Yeah.
So I could easily see Bronny going to SMU, LeBron going to Dallas, and then the next year, Dallas getting Bronny.
Oh, you think it's a 2-year plan? Okay.
Oh yeah, I think LeBron plays 4 to 5 more years if he's having fun.
I didn't even think that it was an option because it seemed like Bronny was going to be elevated to the number 1 player available only because of his dad.
I don't think I think that's. I mean, you know what? Shit, a Charlotte or somebody like that could throw that out, and that wouldn't be a bad idea. You get LeBron, because I know people have opinions about LeBron, but if you put LeBron on a bad team, how is that any worse than Jordan on the Wizards?
Hey, and the Bobcats, they got LaMelo Ball. If he's healthy, great player. They got Brandon Miller, a star for Alabama.
Oh God, I forgot about him.
Yeah, and then if you add Bronny and the LeBron, that's a playoff team easy, especially in the Eastern Conference.
No, I totally agree with that. All right, man. You have anything else you want to talk about?
Man, I've been going through our chats just to see if there's anything else to talk about. I know you're big on Pat Riley becoming the Laker head coach.
I'm just saying that would be kind of funny.
That would be kind of funny. But yeah.
Hey, have you watched the Clippers show? With
I haven't yet, no.
Oh my God. So
it's good.
Yeah. So as you know, last week, and I apologize for not having a live happy hour. Last week I was sick. And so I like to wait till the shows have completely finished, but I didn't have anything else to watch. I watched that. Holy crap. It is so freaking good. Ed O'Neill.
My favorite show is Married with Children.
Yes. And it's so weird. Like my 2 closest friends in life, both of y'all like that show. But I thought John C. Reilly as Jerry Buss for the Lakers was the perfect casting. No, Ed O'Neill as the Clippers just absolutely blows out of the water. So I just want to say, check that out.
Okay.
Anyway. All right. So,
and I think Ed O'Neill married a black woman in real life. So that kind of makes it even funnier, knowing that's Donald Sterling.
Well, and that's the funny thing about Donald Sterling, because Donald Sterling is that weird racist. Like,
because he had a Latina girlfriend or something like that.
He had an African American girlfriend.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. He's like Thomas Jefferson. You just don't want to count him. But anyway.
Gotcha.
All right, again, so Friday, intern Noe and I will be recording our monthly shows. A look back at the number 2 Dallas Cowboy rivals again. Wow, I just got weird sounds. But anyway, just in case you don't know who that is, there we go.
Okay.
And we're going to be recording our next Bad Movies in a Drink.
Wait.
This isn't a bad movie, by the way. And not all Bad Movies in a Drink means bad movie, but this is like everything right about football and also goofy about 90s. Let's just put it this way. At one point, there is an eye rolling on the football field in Texas Stadium, by the way. But anyway, that is intern Noe the Pro. I'm Terry Bennett. This has been Outdrank the Coverage. Happy Hour 10.